Hello everyone and welcome to Beginner's Code, a place for you to learn with me as I dive deep into the coding world. Now before I start, if you want to learn a little more, please check out my website, my Instagram or my GitHub for projects. The links for these will all be in the descriptions below, so please feel free. Also don't forget to subscribe to see more videos from me as I teach you through the basics. Today we will actually be taking a step away from Python and we will be looking at using HTML and CSS to create social media links for a front-end web development project. Okay, so the first thing we're actually going to do is just create two different files within a directory. So I have on my desktop created a social links directory, and within this I will just create one that's called index.html, if I can type, and then a second that's main.css. So now that we have our two files, what we'll do is just create a HTML5 boilerplate, which looks like this, and we'll change the title to be social media links, and we will then link the main.css file. Now we also want to use some icons, and the best way to do this is using the I tag and the font awesome library, because it's a CDN network or a CDN which allows us to just grab things through the internet. It's a content delivery network, and these are very, very useful because as long as you're connected to the internet, you will actually be able to see them. So what we'll do here is open this, and if you see here, all you need to do is just search font awesome CDN, and it's the top one. And then if you scroll down, the very top one, just copy the URL, and then you can paste it into a link where the href is. And now if we go down into the body, we can then create a div to hold our I tags. So if we then give this a class of socials, and then within the div, we want to create 5 different classes. Now, well, 5 different I tags, sorry. Each I tag needs to have its own class, which is used to access the icon that we want from Font Awesome. So what I'll do here is to show you what I mean, is if we give it the class name of Facebook, and then save, and then if I head over to my Finder and I open this file with Google Chrome, you'll see here we actually have a Facebook icon, and that is because the Facebook allows us to grab the icon from this CDN. So we'll be doing this with 4 other types. So we'll want Twitter, Instagram, GitHub and YouTube as well. So Twitter, Instagram, GitHub, and then YouTube. Okay, so now if I save this and head back over, we should see 5. So we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, GitHub, and YouTube. So now what we want to do is actually get started on styling. And what we need to do now is just head over to our main CSS file, and we're going to have a look at the body first. So the actual body of the whole HTML file. So we'll just give it a little bit of margin and padding just to reset the browser, because some browsers do actually open with a different margin and padding. So if we do margin 0 and padding 0, and then if I save this and head over, you'll see over here they are now actually pushed up against the top and the side. Now we want to use display and flex, and this just uses Flexbox to actually align certain things. So now we can use justify content center and align items center. And then if I head over to Google Chrome, you'll see now they are bang in the middle of this, and it is also responsive. So now if I head down to my next one, which is margin top, we want to give a margin top of 30%, and that is because the percent will allow it to still be responsive, but we are only going to be affecting the top by 30. So if I save this and run it, you'll see down here it has actually moved quite considerably from the top. Now next we just want to give the background a little bit of colour, just so that it doesn't look quite as harsh on your eyes. So we will use the HSL and pass in 3 values, so 36, 86% and then 78%. And then if we run it, gives it a nice sort of yellowy, creamy, beigey colour. So next we're going to actually target each I tag within the socials div. So to do this, we'll use the .socials and then I. And just to make sure that that's all correct, socials and then I. So yes, so if we were to just change the font size to 40 pixels, you'll see down here now they are a lot bigger. We'll actually change them to say 60, just so it's a little bit more obvious what is happening right now. I'm also going to change this to 20, so it's a little bit higher on the screen. Next, we will be just giving a margin to each of the icons, and this will just push them apart slightly. So we don't actually want to target the top or the bottom, so we'll give a 0. But if we give 10 to the right and the left, then we should see it, yes. There is now an extra gap between each one. So next we will give a border to each, and this is just going to be a small border, but we will use grey, so 128, 128 and 128. Now this will look like this, and obviously it doesn't look that attractive, but if we now give it a border radius of say 40 pixels potentially, it gives it a lot more roundness. If we say 60, yeah, so they will stay exactly as it is because 40 is the furthest it will go before it becomes a circle. Okay, so now we will give a padding of 12 pixels, and this will just go the whole way around, and this will actually push these rings out slightly. The Instagram one could potentially become a little bit more because it looks a little square on that side. But yeah, this pushes them out further from the icon and gives the border a little bit of room to breathe, for example. Now we want to give a transition to each one, so we'll do 0.4 and we'll see how that looks. But first we'll just give a different colour, and we will pass in a hex code of 3 Fs and then 8 DC. And finally a box shadow of 5 pixels 0, 5 pixels 0 with an RGB of grey. So now if we run this, we have a little bit of colouring to the outside and then a different colour on the inside, which does look quite nice. Now if we head back over, we can now target each individual one and give it its own colour. So if we do the Facebook one and the Twitter, because they are both very similar colours, we can then pass in a HSLA, and give it the opacity of something quite low, because then once we are hovering over it, we can boost the opacity to make it a lot brighter. So we'll pass in 28, 92 and 53% with a 0.4 opacity. So these numbers I'm actually getting from a website. I can't actually remember the name of it off the top of my head. Sorry, I will try and find it and I will put it in the description below, but it's basically a place where we can find colours of brand icons. I'll try and find it, and yeah, as I said, I will try and put it in the description below. So now we can just give these a hover. So for Facebook and for Twitter, and then if we do hover after each of them, so this is a pseudocode that allows us to actually do something whenever the mouse is hovering over something. So if we change the colour, the HSLA colour, to having 1 for the opacity, so like this, then if we run, so this is giving it a slightly lighter blue colour, but then when I hover over, we have a 0.4 second transition that makes it a lot darker, or makes it more vibrant. So this is quite a nice way of animating your social links. Next we will look at Instagram. So .var Instagram, and we will give it a colour of HSLA 329, 70, 58 and 0.4. And you'll see that this is a slightly purpley reddy colour. And then if we use the hover to make it 1, then I've just copied that just to save time. So .hover, and then if I change this to 1 and save it and then run this, when we hover over this, it brings out a much more vibrant colour. And the transition between them all is quite nice. And then next we will do the GitHub. So var-github, colour, HSLA, 0%, 0% and 0.4. And these are noughts because it's black, so we will keep it black. And then we will just add the hover. And passing colour, HSLA 0, 0%, 0%, and then 1. And then GitHub becomes slightly darker, or the opacity becomes more opaque rather than translucent. And then if we do YouTube, so .var YouTube, colour, we will pass in 348, 97% and 39% with 0.4. And then if we do the hover of exactly the same, but passing in the opacity as being 1, then we should have a nice red colour, which we do. And they all seem to work very nicely. But now if we just add our final animation, which will be another hover, but what we want to do is actually make them move. So we can target them all at the same time. So for Facebook, hover, for Twitter, colon hover, and I've missed a full stop. Var Instagram colon hover. Var GitHub hover, and var YouTube hover. Now, if we just give it a transform and we want to translate the y-axis, so we want to bring it down by roughly, or take it up actually because it's minus, take it up by roughly 30 pixels. And then we will give the box shadow a little bit more of a y-axis. So as the icon moves up, the shadow will move down, so it will make it look like the light's coming from above. So box shadow, 5 pixels, 15 pixels, 5 pixels, 0 pixels. And then if we pass in the exact same RGB code here, just to make sure that it's the same, so 128, 128, 128. Now, if I just double check that this is saved, yep, and then run it. So when we hover over YouTube, you'll see it moves up and the shadow below actually moves down slightly. It's a little bit jittery, but you'll notice the shadow does move. And then if we check them all, it actually moves quite nicely, which is good. That's all for today's video. Hopefully this has helped your understanding of how we can use HTML and CSS to create animated projects. If there's anything that you'd like me to cover further, please don't hesitate in reaching out to me by dropping a comment below on Instagram or through my website. Stay tuned, as in my next video I will be creating a text-based game using Python. If you liked what we've been through today and you want to learn more, please drop a like and subscribe to my channel to keep up to date. Thank you, and see you next time.